Without further ado, let me introduce Roya Kandalan. She's here joining us from Boston and is a very capable, dedicated woman. We're really happy to have her, Roya.
Thank you so much for the introduction. I always blush when you are when you say that. I'm like, okay, you are just too kind to me. I really appreciate for the invite, and I'm really glad to be among all of you and discuss AI. I think that's the topic of the day, so why not to dig a little bit further? I prepared two pieces of presentation for today. One piece is mainly about generative AI and a general idea of what it is and somewhat how it works, but mainly to focus on what are the dangers and what are the benefits of having it. Because I believe if we have basically a proper idea of what it is and how it works, we have a better feeling on like how to make the best use of it and how also to prevent any damages. And then I also prepared a workshop based on AI Studio. If you feel comfortable, you can follow along, or you can, everything is recorded and I can provide you with the content so you can try it on your own. So without further ado, let me actually share my screen so we can dive in. Okay. Okay. So as you see, the first piece that I prepared was to answer, I think, a very hot question at least a couple of months ago, that will generative AI terminate us? The idea came to my mind when somebody really close to me, which I obviously don't didn't have many like technological chat with, he came to me and he mentioned that scientists, AI engineers, they are building all of these AI applications, but the reality is that in a few years or so, there would be robots marching down the street and terminating us all because these AIs are going to be sentient. So knowing that that's impression of AI is so far from the truth, but it also was an awakening moment for me to realize that there are so many people who are not really knowledgeable about what is generative AI. And just because ChatGPT becomes so prevalent so quickly, people are getting a wrong idea and they might react not in the most, I think, appropriate way. So I provided this presentation to basically discuss this matter and figure out what are the actually benefits and what are the real risks that we should be aware of. Before I dive in, let me tell you a little bit about myself after the beautiful, beautiful introduction by John. As he mentioned, my name is Roya, and it means a very sweet dream in Farsi. I studied in electrical engineering under the supervision of Professor Kamishna Muduri, and he is a well-known scientist for his work in unmanned airborne vehicles. Currently, I work as a senior scientist in generative AI at the Cigna Group, and I'm also a basically Google developer expert in AI and ML. I'm a Women Tech Maker ambassador, and I'm also a GDG Cloud organizer in Boston. So if you were in town, I would be more than happy to grab a coffee and chat. And I also highly recommend and suggest to look up the Women Tech Maker Ambassador program. Um, if you are a man, a woman, or a non-binary person, this is a community to enable women and non-binary people to really thrive and grow in their career. So I think that's a really good community to be a part of. Now let's dive in. So what is generative AI, right? That's the main question. Generative AI is the type of AI, the type of artificial intelligence that can create and generate content. What is the difference between the generative AI and what we were using as AI before? If you recall, and if you were part of this field, I think in 2014, 20, actually in 2012, the talk of the town was to how we can classify images. So if we have a bunch of images of cats and dogs, how we can say which one is cat and which one is dog. Previous to the advancement of AI, the idea was to build basically features and realize what feature would increase the chance of an existence of a certain animal. So if we have, let's say, pointy ears, that would increase the chance of that animal in the picture to be, for example, a cat. But if we have a lot of fur, that would increase the chance of that animal to be a dog. A little bit later, we had this idea of convolutional neural network, which I don't want to really get into, but it automated how we are defining those features. So with convolutional neural network, we didn't look for features. It did it for us. Now we are one step further. We are providing these models with a lot of examples. So in a scale, we are going significantly larger, but now the model has the information of what this type of what features would belong to the certain animal or certain entity in general. Obviously, if we look into just text data, we are generating a text generating model, something like Palm or GPT or Gemini, but there are multimodality, which I will get to later on. We can train them with a lot of images, and we have a model that can generate new content, which are images. So if you ask it what is a dog, it can generate you the picture of a dog, like Imagine by Google, like DALL-E by OpenAI, like Stable Diffusion. You can add AI code assistant, something like Cody or now Google AI Assistant or Google GitHub Copilot, that this model have been trained with a lot of basically codes. And then you have all of them together as multimodalities, which will end up to be Gemini, for example, or GPT, any of the GPTs, I think, after GPT-2. What are the benefits of this generative AI? So let's always start with a good note. First and foremost, I think the most impact that our society would benefit from is through education. I think education is not available to everybody, and those of us who can actually have an education are absolutely privileged. Access to education and access to good tutor and professors is really limited and unfortunately really expensive. But with generative AI, we actually can provide a customized, personalized education for people to cover both the cost, to limit and mitigate both the cost, and also to make up for all of the nuances that people have when they are studying and they are learning. Some of us are better listeners, some of us are visual learner. We can actually cover all of those details and be really delicate when we want to teach somebody. On top of that, we can have a skill assessment. I don't know if you are familiar with Duolingo. That's an application for teaching languages. But during COVID, when none of the standard English tests were available, Duolingo started using generative AI to basically ask questions appropriate to the level of the students. And it was revolutionary because now people didn't need to go to a center. It can be expanded to any other type of material, so skill assessment are also done by generative AI. The second discipline that would be highly benefited from generative AI, in my opinion, is medicine. Um, Anything from precision medicine, diagnosis, and telemedicine would be significantly helpful to humans. When you are dealing with precision medicine, I want you to think about a simple example. There are people who are afraid of getting into an MRI machine, but they are suffering from cancer. MRI machine can be more informative when you are trying to identify where a tumor is located and how to basically distribute the radiation to actually just impact that tumor. These people can actually go and have a CT scan, which is less frightening in somewhat because it's not a hole anymore that you go in. It's not like a tunnel. And with generative AI, we can have an image to image translation or 3D image to 3D image translation to get this CT and turn them to something close to an MRI, which is helping people who are not able to actually go to an MRI machine. You can have a lot of diagnosis algorithm also, and you can have all of these viruses and protein structure to be um, looked into and figure out which ones can be beneficial to people. I think recently AlphaFold 3 was actually introduced to scientists. And the reason that this is so amazing is because it can cover a wider range of all of the structure of protein and other type of structures that can be really helpful for medicine production. And lastly, in I think telemedicine can be really helpful. It can be helpful in developed country because it reduces the amount of work that medical staff and medical doctors are going through. So a lot of our problem can be solved if we have an informative chatbot, but at the same time, it can be really useful for underdeveloped country where the access to medical facilities are really limited, and then having a chatbot that is even somewhat informed can be life-saving. Um, in third, I think it's not really new to anybody that generative AI can be really creative and help us with our creativity. It can generate new artistic images, it can help us with content, and also be a really good writing assistant. By now, I think you have noticed that I make some mistakes when I talk because English is not my mother tongue. But when I write my LinkedIn post, I never have any grammar mistake. The magic is using a lot of generative AI. I don't ask it to write for me, but I definitely ask it to help me to make sure that the content doesn't have any grammar issues and also the wording is sophisticated and nice, and I don't use like redundant words in my posts, which has been really handy to me. I also wrote a poem using I think one of these chatbots because I had an idea and they just put it together for me, so it was amazing. And the last one that I wanted to touch based on is the impact of generative AI on robotics. The picture on this slide is Eureka, which was introduced I think a few months ago, and that was where NVIDIA were able to use generative AI to extract basically um, a set of action for a robot finger to be able to rotate a pen in them like basically like this, which is a really hard problem to solve because you have to make an action for each of the fingers, for all of the joints. It's harder to do, it's harder to code, but just because we were able to like put together all of the different actions, we were able to do it. And obviously, robotic can be really helpful because a lot of jobs that are dangerous for humans and are really redundant and laborsome can be now translated to something that robots can do. What I said so far were all of the good things that generative AI can do for us. But I'm a scientist, and I don't think as a scientist I can neglect the risks and the issues that come with the new technologies. And I would argue that there we have very minimum technologies that just purely were beneficial and didn't have any risk. But let's look together what are the risks of using generative AI? First and foremost, you can talk about the ethical issues and the bias inherent into generative AI. The reason that I say this bias is inherent and is natural to generative AI is because we are using a huge corpus of information that was taken from internet and a lot of books and everything. But this data, a lot of it is not proper data, it's not good data, and we are every in a daily basis we are dealing with people who are not the nicest stuff nicest self when they are posting on internet, and there might be have they might show some biases or some unfairness or unkindness, and all of that would actually bled into our models, and we see those type of behavior and pattern into the behavior of our models. So it's not that generative AI is bad or AI in general is biased. It's because we didn't spend enough of time to make sure that the data doesn't carry historic bias and unfairness, and we actually let all of that uh, stay inside our data. One of the hurtful, I think, examples is if you ask an image generation model or a text generation model about a scientist or an MD, most certainly they will come up with a male who is an MD and a female who is a nurse, or a male who is a scientist and a female who is an assistant, which shows a lot of inequality and discrimination. Second, if this video goes on, if you pay attention to the tagline, to the title of this, it says, "A strike like the rest of us, robot collapse under pressure at exhibition." Um, this is a snippet of a video that in more technical communities circulated as a technical glitch made a robot collapse. But when I was talking with a few people who are not really technical, I realized that actually the way that they saw this video was with this title that actually implies that this robot has been sentient. We are introducing social media manipulation just using generative AI. This is a tiny little example because actually this recording is real and only the title is um, decisive. th- it's like trying to tell a fake um,
Deceitful.
title. Yes, exactly. Sorry, the wording is hard a little bit. But we also coming to a era that right now the content is not really trustworthy anymore. They can easily lie to us, and there is no way to figure out. It's an arm race to figure out what content is generated and what content is actually real. A lot of companies are trying to watermark the content that they are generating, but you always have this information that being generated with open source model that are not generated, they are not built by major companies. So it would be absolutely hard to for certain say a piece of content is fake or real. And I want to add in here that we are living in this world of social media, and a lot of our friends and communities are people that we are finding and we are getting to know through this social media. But the algorithm that makes us to send to have to see somebody in our close circle is based on what makes us engage more with that content and what those people are engaging more. So if there are two people who would interact with a certain content, these people would be matched, and you would see somewhat of a notification that okay, maybe you want to like be friend with this person. The same way that Netflix, for example, recommends to you that to see what type of movies. And when you are matched, when you have a group of friends, then the content that is provided to you is based on what makes this groups in general to interact more with the content. So even if you are not directly interested in something, but somebody that is in your close friend is interested in, uh, based on some similarities, those content would be basically shown to you. This is not the, I think, the more harmful side of it. The harm comes from you never seeing somebody who thinks opposite of you would have been saying. So never in my timeline would this video come up with saying that, uh, implying that basically a robot was stressed out. I would never see in my timeline that robots are sentient, but people might see those sort of contents only because of the way that they interacted with the other content. Okay, what is the problem? It puts us in digital silos. So you never get to know the other person's point of view. There is no town hall anymore to go and sit together and chat and figure out what this other person is doing. And that's where a lot of conflicts happen. Passing that, one of the most real problem that would come up with generative AI and this wave of having sentiment analysis is job shift. A lot of what we can do right now, and unfortunately a lot of people who don't have the chance of going uh, to universities because it's expensive and it's a privilege, and they wasn't able to gain those privilege, are deprived of, and they have to, like I say, in these jobs, those sort of jobs would be eliminated. A lot of labor intensive job would be eliminated. Driving vehicles, people who are artists and writers, those jobs would be in danger. And we need to be ready for this labor market disruption. I want you to think about it the same way as a telegram has been replaced by telephone and now mobile. So none of those people who would actually like connect the telegram or like read the telegram or would connect the lines in the telephone center have a job after these changes had happened. And it brings me to the next point that a lot of a skill set would be also varying. I I hear in my group of friends that they are worried that the software development job might not be the same as it is right now. A lot of the code, like let's say lead code practices, would not have the same value that they do right now. The slide that I put, the figure I put in this slide is from this amazing, amazing, highly recommended movie called Hidden Figure, which is the idea of NASA using women as people who do computation, but then NASA had bought a computer from IBM, and all of these people would have been jobless if this was not, if it was not for this lady who is in this character who took it upon herself to go and teach everybody on how to do programming, and they were the group that switched job from being a basically doing computation on a with a piece of paper and pen to people who do the programming of the IBM computer. Another aspect of the issues that come to the picture is the cybersecurity crimes. Uh, Me myself, I've been burnt with the phishing attacks. People who send me a message and they just wanted to rob your money. But it's hard. It's maybe happened like once in my life. But if somebody has the information of me, has my digital footprint, and a lot of us know about all of these data breaches from major companies. So they have my social, they have my birthday, they have my name, they have, excuse me for a second. They have access to my wants and needs and desire because they see my interaction and behavior with different posts on social media. They can make this perfect, flawless scheme to actually figure out what is my weakest spot and point on that and make me to pay as much money as they want. Up to this point, a scammer might figure out who is an elder person who doesn't know enough about technology or are really, really loving their children, that they are not thinking straight when asked for ransom money or any like for money for those children. But now it can be for any of us. I was at a conference recently and somebody made a $20 million transaction because they thought that the boss asked them to make that transaction. You're talking $20 million. I'm like, okay, that's a lot. But that's one of the vulnerabilities that's happening with Gen AI. And lastly, we have these legal and regularity issues and challenges that come with generative AI. There are two sides to this coin. One side of it is who is responsible for the error of a generative or an AI decision. Suppose we have the self-driving cars. We have telemedicine and a lot of the diagnosis happening with AI. Who is liable for AI making a mistake? Recently, I think you followed it in the news that a chatbot for one of these airline made a promise to pay basically some money to a customer, which was not a part of what that company would actually do. So, should the company pay it? Should the model owner pay it? Who is in charge? And the other aspect of this is who owns the copyright, whether it's the AI generate the person who put the prompt, whether it's the company who built the model, or whether it's the people who actually had their data being used to train this model. With that being said, let's think about what are some methods that we can use to actually reduce some of these risks. First and foremost is emphasizing on the usage of ethical and responsible AI. I don't work for Google, but I really appreciate them for following seven principles that if these seven principles aren't met, Google is not going to basically focus and invest in a product. So this product must be socially beneficial, must be um, not must be avoiding creating unfair biases. It must be definitely tested. It must be accountable. It certainly has to be worried of the privacy of people and have to uphold to high scientific standard. And lastly, should be available for people. So one of the things that Google doesn't do, for example, is Google does not do a um, major facial recognition platform, a general facial recognition because of all of the surveillance application that it can have. So it is an ethical and responsible action in my opinion. It's also for us or for major companies to start using cyber security basically solutions that utilizes generative AI. The same way that the attacker and the hacker can use generative AI to harm us, we can actually make ourselves to be stronger using generative AI. And as an informed society, we can have the governments to actually look into these AI initiatives and make sure that we have regulations and laws that basically protects our privacy, protects our security, makes sure that we are living in a world that AI is beneficial to everybody. As people, as individuals, also there are certain things that we can do to make sure that future is bright. And the risks and the harm of AI is not actually going to hurt us. First and foremost, stay informed. Continuously educate yourself about AI because we require to have an educated society to make sure that AI is beneficial for everyone. And advocate for ethical AI. We need to have people on the top to make sure that ethical AI is actually a voice in the C-suite, is a voice where the decision is being made, not just a nagging voice in the background. We need to encourage for responsible regulation. We need to request and ask all of the um, people who are in the government and they have the power to pay attention to AI and educate themselves and make the laws that actually make sense. Certain laws might just be for a solution really shorthand in a short term, but we need to make laws that saves us from the harm of AI in long run. We need to make sure that we are promoting inclusivity. No matter how nice the people who make the decision are, if there is not diversity in them, they are not able to see all of the corner cases. We need people from all of the spectrum of genders, all of the different backgrounds, all of the races, all of the religions to actually be uh, and see what is how these basically products are being generated. I heard about a funny story that a team were generating when there was the phone when the phone were having were when phone had fingerprint sensors, they only tested it with men, and then when they wanted to actually build it in large, they asked a few women to test it, and none of them could because they didn't make up the production team didn't make up for the long nails. So making sure that we have people from diverse background is a must. We need to engage in public discussion. All of those digital silos that I talked about, they will be broken and we would be freed from this digital prison if we start talking with each other. No matter how much somebody's opinion are far from us, just hearing their thought makes us to think about our own, and maybe what we are thinking is not right. But I have been wrong, or I had a wrong opinion so many times. Nothing goes wrong if we just realize that maybe something we think is not the best one. And lastly, it's to adapt and thrive. The only thing that is fixed is change. Change always happens, and we cannot stay and say and protect ourselves from the change. So the only thing that we can do is not to be an stiff branch, but to be somebody who adapts to the change and learns and grows. With that being said, I want you to think about this quote that somebody told me that fear biological ignorance more than artificial intelligence. This is the first section of my presentation, and I stay for let's have a 5 minutes questions if somebody wants to have a question about it, and then we continue with Gemini and a workshop. Thank you.
So if you have a question, feel free to unmute yourself and just ask, or you can also throw it right into the chat and we'll read it out. Anybody?
And I think I trust there is a time to answer the questions already we received.
Yeah, those weren't specifically about Roya's presentation, and I wanted to see if anyone wants to ask Roya anything. Roya, someone was interested in getting involved with people in AI and ML in Boston, and so I put in a link to Google Cloud Boston. So,
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
is there anything else you want to tell? Can you tell us something about your group and what people can expect to be when they participate?
We have a group of 5 people. Locus and Joe, they are both GDE in cloud and also cloud champions. We have Norbert, he's a data scientist and he's also a cloud champion. And Melody, she's a data scientist and woman take maker. And I am the kiddo in the group, so I make all of the troubles and they try to deal with it. We have actually a lot of events coming up. So apart from the Built with AI series of events that we are hosting right now, I think, Road to database engineer, if I'm not mistaken. I highly recommend you joining the group and enjoy all of these events. There will be an IO extended in July, hopefully, and then in late July, we will start a Road to ML certificate uh, for 12 weeks. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it, I think.
Oh, that's
We
great,
do a
Roya.
lot of events, but it comes like we usually like prepare for 2 months in advance. One thing for sure is there will be a Grand Dev Fest, but that would happen later in the year. But our Grand IO Extended would happen late July, so stay tuned.
Just for
That's great, Roya.
confirmation, IO extended. Let's define that.
So this event that we're doing right now is an IO extended. It's an opportunity to get a recap of what Google is rolling out, and different groups are providing a different spin on that. And so, we're obviously having Roya talk about AI, and she's going to do a workshop with us. And so, can you tell us anything about Roya? Can you tell us anything about the Boston IO extended that you're going to do?
So we merged an IO extended and Next extended together. A few of us, a few of organizers attended both, and we usually invite a few of the developer who are not immediately a part of this group, but they've been in both of these events. So last year we invited, I don't know if you recall, but Alice Killer and Lucas Carson, both of them were the keynote speaker at Next, and we had invited them in person. And then for the IO Extended, we had a speaker from Google, we had a speaker from the Broad Institute of MIT and Harvard, and they discussed what was basically announced at IO that they are actually utilizing in their work. This year we have the same structure in mind, but we haven't confirmed with all of our basically a speaker, so I keep it as a secret for now, but stay tuned.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, cool. So Roya, what do you have in store for us?
Let me answer this last question, which somebody put here. Can you talk about the part of AI and MRI scan again? I missed that part. Sure. That was actually a project really close to my heart. Um, for some of my background, I work in a cancer center, and that was one of the project worked there. It was not my immediate project. I think I was involved with it, but I was not the lead. Um, if you know how the MRI machine is, it looks like a tunnel, and people go in there, and some people are fearing from a closed type of like container like that, and some people had different type of issues, like if somebody has implants in their body, that's cause issue with MRI. If people are their physics cannot fit into the machine, that can cause issue. There is a certain basically volume that fits into the machine, so that can cause issue. So the workaround is instead of having the MRI for the people, you translate the CT to look like an MRI, to be more to actually show all of those variation of the organs, and also to be more precise. But obviously, and CT is way faster than an MRI. MRI takes a few hours, but CT is way quicker. So this translation would help a lot. And this what was happening is not exactly as the architecture of generative AI right now, what you are seeing as like a diffusion model or as a transformer. The architecture was actually a unit, and I can get deeper into the architecture, but I don't know how familiar you are with this type of architecture. But um, think about like getting everything in a tiny bit of vectors and then translating it to an MRI. So you go from a CT to a really tiny vector and then extract the MRI out of it. You can add me on LinkedIn, and if you have particular questions, I can really get deep into it.